The saga of Michael Myers and Laurie Strode comes to a spine-chilling climax in the final installment of this trilogy as Halloween ends and it's slasher sports cinema.
They say that I have shed innocent blood. What's blood for, if not for shedding?
I'm your number one fan.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
God, it knows I'm here.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
You're listening to the Slasher Sports Show with Billy Graves.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Slasher Sports Cinema. I am your host, and today, moderator, maybe? I've got a special panel of some very good friends of mine, and we're taking a look at the grand finale of the David Gordon Green directed Halloween Ends. Really polarizing flick. So without any further delay, let me introduce our panel of no-gooder co-hosts. He is the host and producer of Weber State Weekly, fellow Nashville Sounds fan, Milwaukee Brewers fan. Welcome to the show, Mr. Colby Peterson.
Billy, so good to be on with you, man. We've talked a lot on Twitter, and so this is the first time that we've got a little bit of time to get together and taking a little bit of a break from sports to talk a little bit about cinema, man. So excited.
I'm happy to have you on, man. You're right. We've been chit-chatting through for the better part of a year or more over the baseball season.
Yeah.
I didn't even know, I'll be honest, I didn't even know at the time that we followed each other that you were also in Nashville.
Yeah, because we just moved here about a year ago, like just
so you were probably new on the block.
Yeah, I mean, fairly new, right? Like just I feel like we still are figuring out Nashville, even though it's been a year. But yeah,
well, it takes a while. It does take a while. It's just a different kind of town, you know. You got your little sectors. It's almost like the boroughs in New York, except in a very minuscule landscape. But you know, meeting you through Milwaukee Brewers of all Brewers Twitter is how it happened.
It's true,
and we're right in each other's backyards. It's bananas. Yeah. But anybody who follows you knows that you're a hardcore sports guy, but you actively seek out the weekend horrors, and I salute you for it. But you know, it was the most like wildly timed thing. You and I spoke before whether or not it was, you know, there was a horror version of How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Oh yeah, that was like a random idea I had in my kitchen one day, and I was like, you know who would know about this? Billy and Slasher Sports. Let's send the question over to them. And you guys had a good answer. And then apparently you speak it into existence. Now
you
there's
spoke
going
it
to be
into
a
existence. You did it.
They're going to do
not
it.
a month later either. Not a month later. It's like they announced it, and like since then, either the working titles have been dropped or changed to You're a Mean One. I don't know about a cast yet, but I'm totally down for it. It's going to be good holiday horror viewing.
Holiday horror is a special niche in the genre, right? And so always look forward to those.
Me too, man. But our second member of the panel, great friend I met when I was still on the judo and jiu-jitsu mats, and now he's one of the best tattoo artists in Bowling Green, Kentucky. He is my good friend Justin Webb. Webster, welcome.
How's it going, guys? How's everyone doing?
I don't know anybody from Bowling Green, Justin, okay, except you and a guy I graduated high school with, who's also a tattoo artist, or at least he was the last time I heard. You know him, Wes Carter.
Yeah. And John Carpenter.
Say that again?
And John Carpenter. John Carpenter himself.
Well, yeah, hopefully you're not in a rival tattoo gang or anything, and I just, you know, stirred up a ruckus. But I think you and Wes are pretty good pals. And I need to get him on. I really do. I haven't talked to him since high school.
Super insightful guy.
He
really
is.
like knowledgeable about like a lot of stuff.
And
Man's
it's the
lived.
dumbest thing.
He's
He has, and it's the dumbest thing in the world, but the dude is a baller. He can pick up a basketball and he will make you look silly. You
That's
look at
what I
him
hear.
and he didn't look like that before. Okay. Like he had the short, high and tight, almost preppy kid. Almost.
He also like runs like ultra marathons now.
I believe that.
He runs to work from like another county. Like, I'm not kidding. Like,
that is
like, yeah,
bananas.
I just ran like 40 miles today. I'm like,
so he's gone nuts 2 cents. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, it couldn't be me. Could not be
he's
me.
getting home. He's getting home. Good luck.
Yeah, couldn't be me. Well, finally, guys, she puts the sin in cinema. And if you're not hearing the show for the first time, then you've heard the voice. She provides the intro to the show. When you hear you're listening to, she is my go-to when it comes to horror literature. And that's because I fucking hate to read. She is Brittany McCuiston. Welcome, Brittany.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
I do want to thank you, Brittany, for coming on such short notice. I mentioned it, and you were game from Jump Street.
Absolutely. Anytime.
I couldn't have asked for a better crew to join me today. Guys, listen, Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills, they've been kind of talked to death, so we'll spare everyone that discourse. But we do need to talk about the end of Halloween Kills, like to set the scene, I guess. Leaving the theater after seeing Halloween Kills, high level, what did you expect out of the upcoming final installment? Colby, let's start with you.
So yeah, we were super excited to go and see Kills when it came out, because we knew that there was going to be so many ties back to, especially the first film. Like, it's one of my wife's favorite films. And so, bringing back characters like Lindsay, right? Which we've got this joke in our family where it's like my wife listens to a fan that's like the white noise thing during the day or at night when she sleeps. And the fan is always named Lindsay. So like there are all these like little things in our life, and so bringing back some of that stuff from the original film and just little pieces from throughout, right? It was like, man, this is great because I love nostalgia, especially in films like this. And so, like you said, leaving the theater, it was clear that like, oh, okay, because I guess at the time I wasn't aware that there was going to be another film, but the way that it ended, it's like, oh, there's more. Sort of like in the way that the original film ended, where Michael falls through the window. And then they go and look out and he's gone. Right. And that leads eventually to Halloween 2, which is just a continuation of the same night. It was clear that like that was going to happen. This one happens a little bit differently, right? Because there is a gap. But I being just a casual observer of Halloween films, and at the end of Kills, it was like, okay, we got a little more, and more Halloween is always good, in my opinion.
Well, less is not more, right? We don't want less. We don't really even want it to end, if I'm being real about it.
Yeah, I'll take more.
Brittany, what say you? What did you expect from ends at the end of Kills?
So watching Kills, did see in theater, A+ experience. I was the first Halloween I got to see in theaters. So I was hyped. That brutality, I was a level I didn't expect from David Gordon Green, but I was thrilled, and I knew that there was going to be another one, and I had set myself up for it to be that final epic showdown that we were just all been waiting for ever since we first saw Halloween for the first time. And I just knew it was going to be something that no one was going to expect, but it was going to, he was going to wrap it up satisfyingly. You were going to wait for that final moment, that final gotcha, I got it, I got him type thing. And that's exactly what I expected.
Well, going into Kills myself, or into Ends myself, I made the mistake of basically taking the alternate ending of Kills as like the ending. I keep forgetting that it does not end. Like the canon end is not Lori calling Karen and hearing Michael's breathing and saying, well, I'm coming for you, Michael. That's not the ending. The ending is just, what we saw out of the theatrical version. So I expected something a little bit different. I expected there to be some sort of fight at the beginning that shows us how, like, this is all. I expected basically a 90-minute fist fight between the two, and obviously that wasn't what we were going to get. When I heard that we were skipping forward 4 years, I said, okay, well, they're definitely going to go a different direction in this, and a different direction they did. Justin, what say you, my guy?
Going out of kills and it ends. My expectations, I was really hoping for, some sort of finality, just because you with the end of kills, with it was a nonstop, just 0 to 90 slasher fest. It was just a classic slasher film, and high body count. So you just want to see, kind of just like, they set up so much at the end of kills in terms of, like, is he supernatural? Is he not? Is he, does killing make him stronger? Is he transcending? So many of these loose ends, especially with, like, what's the relevance of the window, etc. And then, I had high hopes that ends would tie it all together, put a little bow on it, and explain some stuff for us.
The window was a big point of contention. I don't know if contention is the right word, but maybe more like it led me to have some questions. Like, why is he going to the window? Because once he killed Big John, and he's hanging out by the window, and here comes Little John. Well, he brings him away from him. And then, we find Karen later on at the end. Kills Karen, and he's back to the back to the window again.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you really make of the window scene, Brittany? Well, what was the significance from kills of the window to you?
At the time, I never paid it much attention. It was okay. It's just kind of like a plot point. Got to, tie in something. I had a feeling, especially when they kept mentioning, what is he looking out of? They were going to tie it into the town somehow, some way, but I couldn't really foreshadow how they were going to do that. I thought it was an odd little touch, just specifically that window, but I had a strong sense that it was going to be a kind of a inward looking outward type of and projection type of thing onto your outer surroundings, a little psychology there. But I had to stop and think about that afterwards. At the time, I didn't give it too much thought, but afterwards I was like, this is probably setting up something a little bit bigger than just these main characters. But that's what I got out of it.
You're not too far off from where I started, but that's so far from where I ended. I was like looking at this window stuff and thinking to myself, okay, yeah, there's something to this. I think maybe I looked a little bit too far into it. Well, actually, I know I did, because there was absolutely no window significance in ends. And I thought, like, is he looking at the reflection? Is he looking across the street at something? Like, what the hell is old man Marley from Home Alone going to be dragging a barrel up the sidewalk and salting the sidewalks? I don't know what the fuck this is, but it wasn't what I expected. No. Colby, did you have any theories, any hypotheses on the window situation?
So a couple of them, right, man? So I talked in my intro about the ties back to the original. And so if you're familiar with the very first film from the 70s, the deed, the thing that kind of begins Michael Myers' career, quote unquote, it happens upstairs in those rooms where he's sort of standing and looking out, right, in the old Myers home. And that plays a big role in that first film where he's looking, he's peeking, he's watching, and then later Loomis is hanging out up there and he's peeking and he's trying to find Michael, and then eventually, he shoots him and he falls out the window, and that falling out the window then sort of unleashes him onto Haddonfield for round 2, which becomes Halloween 2. At the end of Kills, like you said, where he's constantly looking out the window and there are these scenes, it feels like they're kind of tying back to that. But at the same time, I hear what you guys are saying too, where it's this introspection almost, where it's he's looking out at the world in a way that, maybe he's trying to make sense of it. Cause it's almost cliche where, oh, the guy's standing there looking out the window, looking contemplative, right? It's maybe that's what they're trying to do. But to me, it's they're trying to harken back to days of yore, which is what a lot of that film did. I mentioned the fact that they brought in Lindsay, they brought back, Tommy Doyle, and Tommy Doyle ends up, being a rabble rouser, which good for Tommy, man. I didn't know he had it in him. But yeah, I guess I sort of ended kind of the way that Brittany did, where it's just I don't know what it means. I have my own thoughts, but I really can't say, yeah, that's it for sure. It's just conjecture on my part.
Yeah, you're right though. Hey, Christian's chiming in. Would you say it lived up to the whole series? Oh, I'm gonna leave that to you guys. Justin, you want to take that one first? I think he's muted. Let me unmute him. There you go.
Would you say the movie ends itself?
I think so. Yeah. Would you say Halloween Ends lived up to what we expected through the whole series?
I don't think it lived up to a lot of what people expected, but I think in a different world, it could have been a really good addition to the franchise. I think it could have been really good. I don't think it was marketed or lived up to what everybody thought it would be.
So maybe not great, maybe not terrible, different, and could have been better.
If it had just owned that, and I know 3, Season of the Witch is very a big point of contention for a lot of Halloween fans, but this was their 3. This was their Season of the Witch.
No, I'll give you that. We should probably just start back at the trailers. It feels like it took a long time to get something out there to us. We were really, and I can't really even say that this was something that I've compared between, say, Barbarian or Smile or Pearl. We got trailers for a long time. It felt like there was no time between movie release and the first trailer we got. But did the trailer set the proper expectation? I don't know that it did.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, so spoilers really did a number on all of us. Okay, it was impossible to miss those to miss those spoilers. So
yeah,
people are posting them left and right in the Facebook groups, the Reddit groups, and you can't really hang around those if you don't want to get a movie spoiled, right? But the first big thing was this new character named Corey Cunningham, having a big role in the film. Only speaking from the beginning, initially, how do you feel about having a brand new guy come in and be this big a part of our grand finale? Colby, let's start with you.
Yeah, because if you see the film, there's in some ways it's sort of like what you were talking about, Billy, where it's like a cold open, where it's this is a thing that's completely over here in left field that is brand new in its entirety. And, they go through it and what happens. But having Corey play this big of a role is kind of interesting, because I think that the film probably needed it, because could they really build enough story around the kind of end of the Michael Myers saga, like you said at the top, Billy, with Strode and Michael, with Laurie and Michael, kind of this long decades long battle between the two, that this was going to be the culmination of all of that. Now, all of a sudden there's this new guy, and it's I think that that's probably a mechanism that had to happen, because I don't know that there would have been enough story to do the tortured Laurie Strode movie one more time. you know, like it probably wouldn't have been enough. And so they introduced Corey, who I think is a really interesting character. Like in some ways, like he's just so many things throughout the film that it keeps him interesting throughout, and watching him go through those changes is good for the film. So I don't mind it. But it is also kind of maybe a little bit disappointing, because it's like, oh, I got invested in this character, and then the end happens, and like you said, this is sort of, it all gets wrapped up. So that's it.
So the send-off is really surrounding this brand new guy who we didn't have any kind of emotional tie to.
Yeah, we regrow it, you know, for the course of about 65 minutes or so, and then, you know, we begin to see what happens. So it's very,
Justin,
very new.
Do you agree?
I feel like I do agree we didn't have enough story for the tortured Laurie Strode story one more time. We could have done something with Allison, maybe. I liked Corey as a character. I feel introducing him even in Kills may have been like a little bit better, maybe a little bit more beneficial. Because while we had to quickly get invested in the character, and I was shocked at how much sympathy I had for him. You know, I ended up having a lot of sympathy for the character, and I felt bad for him, which, you know, mission accomplished from the writers. But at the same time, his entire story and the way that his story comes to an end in this movie, it was sort of abrupt, you know. And I feel like we almost get like this main character that kind of just gets a mass send off. You know, I don't know. It was I can go both ways on Corey. And I watched the film a few times now just to kind of try to really
convince yourself.
It all in. I feel like he was a rushed character.
Well, it did take the entire film to get that character arc. And like it was essentially Corey's movie, because you see him go from the bullied, well, I would say youth, but no, he's basically the same age in all of this. There's really 3 years difference, 2 years difference between the beginning of Corey and the demise of Corey. So Brittany, what say you? I mean, how did you feel about having the brand new character come in and basically engulf the entire storyline?
Yeah, so I didn't mind the character. I too, I agree with both of you, actually. It was, the character itself was fascinating. Watching a true accident that you didn't mean to happen kind of manifest itself into this really arc villain character that it was truly made. And you know that there's probably little pieces of, you know, that already lying inside of you, but that pushing and that prodding was fantastic. I wish that it felt like they tried to, Season of the Witch, tried to, you know, make their own movie, but slap a Halloween logo on it and slap the mask on it. I would have loved to see him really just have his own movie and start the anthology series. That would have been fantastic. But I didn't care for it in the context to which they did it. It was a little abrupt, much. You got attached and then it was just gone. And then it was not my favorite piece.
I wonder if Halloween Ends in 40 years is going to get the same treatment that Halloween 3 gets right now from the hardcores. It's like, you know what? We want a Halloween 3 remake right now, right? Well, maybe in 40 years, they're going to want a Halloween Ends standalone reboot. The Corey Cunningham story.
I would love a Corey movie.
Yeah, I'd watch that.
Because isn't it pretty stupid that we all hate the fact that this whole thing didn't revolve around Michael, but we are still fascinated and take nothing away at all from Corey Cunningham and his arc?
Yeah,
that's bananas to me.
That just proves everything that John Carpenter originally wanted for the series, where he wanted a different story in each movie every year, and he wanted to go away from the Michael Myers character after the first film, and this just proves he was right.
Shoot him from the hip. Just a quick yes or no. Do you think a Friday the 13th film about Pamela Voorhees would fly right now? Would it do well?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that, we were talking a little bit about this beforehand. Backstory, man. People want that stuff.
I agree. I would see the hell out of a Pamela Voorhees movie.
100%.
Yeah, give me some of the stuff from the graphic novels. The dad, I can't remember what his situation was. I don't do a ton of reading, but Elias Voorhees, he should have a big part in that. And like, let's see what that was all about. Let's see what made Jason, right? And maybe get like that Scrappy Doo reveal at the end, take off the mask, and it was Jason the whole time, and then it goes off, cut to black.
Let me ask you guys a question, because I just thought of this while we were talking about, Corey Cunningham. And do you think that it's kind of this attempt to humanize Michael in a way that they just wouldn't be able to, because Michael Myers is like kind of this iconoclast thing that you just can't humanize Michael, right? But like, if I introduce Corey Cunningham as a character and I take him through this torture and, the way that society treats him over, and this murder over an accident, which, you can quibble over that and say, well, that's not what happened with the original Michael Myers at all, Colby. But do you think that introducing the mechanism of Corey and the tie that they have throughout the film with Michael, that it's a way of saying like, here's Michael, but not Michael at the same time. So you have some sympathies for him and understanding like the forces, like you're saying, Billy, on this is how this guy becomes what he is, because all these other things are happening and like people are cruel and just society is mean. And so then you see the blossom of a true villain, and then things happen. Do you guys feel that that's legit, or is that just come on, Colby?
I think so. I absolutely think so. I think there's a lot of people that the Halloween fans are divided on, does Michael get a backstory or does he not? And a lot of people hated the Rob Zombie films because it almost gave him too much of a backstory. And it's like, well, what made him him? And this movie kind of does that in a more discreet way. You kind of look at like, well, something molded Corey, so therefore maybe something molded Michael. It kind of does it in a more discreet way of like, these people aren't just evil for the sake of being evil. And I personally like that approach, where you kind of have some understanding of why they tick,
Anybody who says anything about Rob Zombie Halloween 1, they can meet me in an alley and we'll talk about it. We're not coming out of that alley until our business is settled. Whatever they have to say about Halloween 2, I'll shake their hand, buy them a drink, and then agree with them. It's like, I am so like my liking of Halloween 1 Rob Zombie and my dislike of 2 is like the difference between raw and grilled onions. Okay, it's night and day, Daddy. I don't like it. I just couldn't do Halloween 2 whatsoever. But Colby, to your point, that is a very good analysis. Because even Corey brings it up to Allison. It's like, look, they look at you as a survivor. They look at me as a murderer. And so, yeah, everything you're saying is 100% on point. And what Justin was saying makes total sense to me.
Well, I think also Halloween Ends, also they try to lend that same thing to Michael whenever the character is saying, you taunted this man. To Laurie, she was, you taunted this man, or she tortured this and teased this mentally challenged man until he, snapped. And then it was
not
like
only one person said that.
Yeah.
Multiple people said that.
Yeah.
Outside the grocery store, there was the radio DJ. Mm-hmm. Like more than one person had the thought that Laurie was at fault for this. Like she's the one who goaded him, and you can only expect a dog not to bite your hand for so long.
But the irony is, these people that talked about how Michael was molded are also characters that do this to Corey throughout the film.
The very ones. the very ones. So let's talk about the cold open. I want to know your thoughts on the cold open involving Corey and the child he was babysitting. Little fucking annoying child. I think the annoying child trope has gone a little far. Like in 2018, the little kid that was being babysat, he was cool. He would talk that shit. He would talk it, but he was cool about it. He still liked his babysitter. This other kid, I might have thrown him off the balcony. I don't know that for sure. And for legal purposes, this is a hypothetical situation. I don't babysit children now. But all the usual clues that we'd see with Michael having entered a home, you see the mysteriously opened door, the missing knife, the lamp knocked over. They give us some suspense, but ultimately it's just the kid being the kid, right? And do you feel like this opening scene does enough to get that sympathy? Justin, you kind of started going that way because you did say that you had some sympathy for Corey. But was this scene enough to turn him into that quote unquote boogeyman that the town had been missing?
The aftermath of that scene, absolutely. He was a victim of circumstance and like wrong place, wrong time. He's holding a knife, looking over a balcony as the parents walk in. I mean, and he says, I'm going to kill you. Obviously doesn't mean it at that time, but then ultimately what happens, and that he's put into a really bad situation where, and being a young kid in that situation, it was more than likely no one was going to believe him on his story of what happened. No one was going to listen, and inevitably ruined his life. Wasn't he going to engineering? He was going to be an engineer or something, and then he ends up working as just a welder at a junkyard.
I could have used a little bit more of a cold opening with maybe a montage of testimony against him.
Yeah.
Maybe the mom saying, I overheard him saying in the room upstairs, I'm going to kill you. And he had a knife, to make it just blur that line just a little bit more. Because, I mean, logic tells you, if you don't go too far into it, logic tells you that we didn't see any knife wounds. So the knife wasn't used. It was clean. There's no DNA on it other than the kid holding it. So yeah, it's kind of cut and dry, but you start putting those other things in there with the testimony from the parents. Maybe you've got a point to say, okay, yeah, they did demonize him really badly. And that was the turnout.
And it's small town hearsay.
Small town hearsay. We know all about that, don't we?
Oh, we do.
So that's what I was going to say, is that like the rumor mill starts to churn at that point, because not everybody knows what happened in there, right? Like maybe they didn't read the police report, or people talk. And so it's like a little bit of telephone game. Things get distorted. And next thing you know, this dude is the most evil villain who got off because the cops are there. They investigate. They see that it is, in fact, an accident. He's not, doing anything, but people talk.
Well, if people are talking to the point where they think Lori is the responsible party for Michael's doing, of course the rumor mill is going to say that Corey is 1000% guilty for killing this child, right? And details, but no detail is too small. I want to get your thoughts on the blue opening credit lettering. I mean, we know that came from Halloween 3. We know it was an homage to Halloween 3. Do you think there's something that's maybe going a little bit deeper than just an homage? Maybe something a little bit deeper than face value? What say you, Brittany?
I think it was definitely, I just actually read an interview that there was with David Gordon Green, and he said there was going to be an alternate ending with like an actual a season of the witch type ending, factory, everything. So I think they set out to make truly like a season of the witch type, which would have been awesome. But you got to figure out, you've set up this entire series so far for this epic showdown. So you have to have the epic showdown in there. You have to actually have people in to get in the seats. And so I think that they had to back off of that more than they had originally planned, but still left little, touches here and there with it. And it's, it is what it is type thing. You set out to make something, you gotta reevaluate.
That would have been an epic ending, though.
It would have
even if it's an alternate ending. I know it was never shot, and like he's made that clear.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's lying to us, and it's like a third alternate ending on the DVDs. I would love that. They already put some Season of the Witch Easter egg situations in Halloween Kills. The masks of the kids that were at the park. You had the pumpkin, the witch, and the skeleton, which is great. It's great to see that. I thought that's where it was going to die. I did not realize they had a whole thing written until David Gordon Green mentioned that in that same interview. Do you think there's any further depth to the Season of the Witch in the opening lettering, Colby?
I don't know, man, because I guess I wasn't really paying that much attention, because Season of the Witch is such a unique film in the Halloween canon, right? Because it's so different from everything else that I think people associate with Halloween, that in my brain, it's sort of like far away. We're talking about, like we've said already here, the culmination of the Laurie Michael saga. And then small details like that would have been missed by somebody like me, who's very focused on that. And that's what I'm here, because this is Halloween Ends, right? And then we're going to harken back to Season of the Witch. And it's like, wait, what? Like, I'm not even in the frame of mind to catch that. So good on you guys. But I would have totally missed a thing like that. And if you guys hadn't brought it up, or if, like you said, there hadn't been mention of it in an interview.
What say you, Justin?
I definitely believe it was like, it has to be like some sort of a Easter egg 2, 3, because it was almost kind of like that little wink and a nod, but saying this isn't Michael's film. This isn't what you're thinking it's going to be. This isn't your traditional Michael Myers chasing a babysitter film, and I think it was probably intentional to do that, along with the fact that they mirrored the font for Halloween Kills, and mirrored the font for 2018 with the original. So I think that this was kind of definitely something to kind of also say, though, that this wasn't your traditional Halloween film.
Yeah, I'm going with you. The way you started off made me think that it was, like you were saying, it was just an Easter egg, just a little wink and a nod. But I do think the latter part of your comment there pointed at, like, hey, we're using this opening font to let you know right off the bat, right off of Jump Street, like, just like Halloween 3, this is not going to be what you expected out of this series. You expected Michael in Halloween 3, you didn't get him. You expected a certain story in Halloween Ends, and you're not going to get it. So just go ahead and subliminally get that through your head.
Yeah,
but I'm okay with it. Yeah, I think we're on the same page there. Now, post opening credits, there's a montage of Michael and his filthy deeds from the previous movie, and then we meet Laurie again, who's writing her autobiography. The alternate ending again showed Halloween Kills. Showed Laurie call her daughter Karen, and you hear Michael's breath on the other end of the call, and she declares, "I'm coming for you, Michael." Now, even though this isn't the theatrical, thus canon ending, you think that maybe set improper expectations to viewers going in? Because if you're like me, you don't watch a film for if you buy the DVD, your normal view, which is probably going to be like maybe once a month, if that, I'm not going to watch the lesser number of minutes in a film. I'm going to watch the longest version. And at some point I tricked myself into thinking that ending with Laurie walking down the hallway with a knife in her hand, having declared that she's going to go after Michael now, I tricked myself into believing that is the ending to Halloween Kills. So I think I set myself up for failure. Does anybody else do that? Or did I just do something like really stupid and just kind of against my own better judgment, I guess.
I think it's fine to have had those expectations. I feel that was probably a lot of people's expectations of what was going to happen.
Yeah.
I personally, just shooting from the hip here, think they had a lot more time to overthink this film than they probably needed. And if they would, I don't know. I think that was I think that was our problem with Kills, is that like you've had COVID and you have this whole, time span of like COVID, political things, and everything else. And I think they made themselves overthink it to where they almost like went from, because the original plan was it was just going to be Halloween 2018 and then maybe a sequel to it. And then they've stretched it out to a trilogy. And it's almost like, well, we've got too many ideas to cram in here.
So really, Kills could have been the end of the trilogy, and we would have been fine with it. Had they beat him down in the street and he didn't get up.
Yeah, if he hadn't like gotten attacked and killed an entire farmer's market of people in the street, or John Wick, the fire department, it would have been,
I would have been happy had the lady with the iron got the final blow.
That's why I say, like, a farmer's market, you had everything, like, candles out there.
Starched his ass.
I think had they flipped the movies, had Ends been the second one and then Kills been the third, I think that would have been great.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just completely ignoring 2018. That's an interesting thought, because I've heard a lot of people
ignoring 2018. Just if you'd done like 2018
maybe
Ends,
a blend.
So you have Corey, everything else, and then Kills, and maybe you can carry Corey on. Maybe there's resolution to him, and the new, what would then be Kills, but also the entire town attacking Michael, and then.
Yeah, I mean, I dig that. I dig that. Maybe blending 18 and Kills a little bit, and then making that the finale. Well, listen, Laurie's baking, crocheting, panicking at the sound of a smoke alarm because she left something in the oven for too long. She's like running on her tiptoes. Like you ever see those episodes of SpongeBob where he's trying to sneak up on somebody and his little feet are doing that little number, and that's how she's doing when she's running towards the kitchen when the pie's burning. But this is just a few years removed from being a stone cold killer herself. All right, blowing the heads off mannequins in her backyard. What do we think of modern Laurie? Has she softened up? Is it believable? Is it logical that she would have gone from the state that she was in to the state that she is in now? Brittany, I'm going to kick it off with you.
No, I didn't. I don't think it was a logical choice. It's very hard to go from being in survival mode and plotting. You're not even just planning, you're plotting how to take on this other world entity that in your head that is going to come for you, and to just switch from that to a little bit of a Susie Homemaker type of vibe. It was very startling. I think they did it to soften her, which I personally love Laurie because she is a badass and unwilling, but still a badass. You don't survive everything she had survived and not be that way, not be, tough. And I think that there was a way to kind of meet the two together without losing that edge that she has, which is why you love her so much. But I think it was a little too much to try to brush off and everything that she'd been through. And I think it lessened her character a little bit.
Colby, agree?
Yeah, I think I agree with Brittany in that, like, it's difficult to go from, especially like the progression that we've seen over the last decade or so of Laurie Strode, and just becoming, like Brittany said, just sort of like a person who's become really hardcore, unwillingly, but had to become really hardcore, to now all of a sudden back to almost like original Laurie, where she's just trying to live her quiet life, and Michael just bursts onto the scene and has a a huge impact on her over the next 40 years or whatever. But one of the things I was thinking about in this film, and my wife pointed it out while we were in the theater, was that sound was a key piece of this movie. There were like lots of really loud noises, or just throughout the film, sound was really, really important. And I wondered if, we saw some of that in previous films where like they used similar sound effects from the original two, right? Where they're like, oh, we're going to, like, when Michael appears, there's lots of that kind of stuff. But I wondered if this transition now back to regular old Laurie Strode and sort of almost shedding away everything that she'd become over the years to just now this quiet old lady who lives in a house with her granddaughter and is, like you said, Billy, just baking pies. If that was a way to sort of, like, it's almost like she let her guard down, which is not something she had done for many, many years. And now she's writing the memoir and like she's kind of like closing out her life. But then all of this stuff comes back and pushes her back into, like what Brittany was talking about, this survival mode. Now having been 4 years removed from kills, to say like, no, you can't close it just yet. You need one more time. You have to get your armor out one more time in battle. And she does.
I mean, you talk about going back to some of the OG pieces of the puzzle. Yeah, a lot of original sounds. The final scene, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but the final scene, she was wearing like the original outfit, was she not, Justin?
Yeah.
Yeah, like the kind of denim on denim, kind of looking a little bit more like a denim and diamonds Silverados kind of gal, but she was wearing the hell out of it. But yeah, you're right. They even brought back Laurie's theme. Wasn't there like a theme song basically that was on there? I might have missed that in the first view. Sometimes I don't pick up on the musical parts that I should, like the differences, but like, just, it wasn't that long ago I went and saw the Nashville Symphony, and they were doing Final Fantasy VII soundtrack, and they said, well, this is called this and this is called this, and I'm like thinking, fuck man, I thought those were the same song. So maybe my musical ear is not where it should be. I don't know. That's maybe just me. Justin, you're a rocker. Listen, Colby likes to brag about it. He's got this sweet guitar in his Twitter profile pic, and I'm a little bit jealous of it. Yeah, but I have like the least. Brittany, I don't care if you can only play one note on a piano. You have more musical talent than I do. Okay?
No, can't do it.
No? Okay. Well. So the party with Corey, let's talk about that one. This is a kind of a transitional scene, but I think it's a little more important than maybe the casual viewer might see. But the party with Corey and the supermarket scene with Laurie, these scenes happen back to back. Okay, and I think they're meant to paint a picture that says neither Corey nor Laurie. I hate the fact that these names rhyme. I hate the fact that they rhyme. But neither one of them are able to get away from the people blaming them for their own traumas. Okay. I mean, do you feel that point was delivered well enough with these scenes? I mean, at first glance, they feel like filler scenes, like I said, but I think they're important to understanding why Michael, the man, like the human, hasn't been a focal point of the film up to this point, but instead, like the trauma that he's left. And I know he didn't leave the trauma on Corey. He was not, responsible for that. However, he is responsible for the demeanor that the town has been left in. So maybe they're a little quicker to judge somebody who takes another life. But what say you? Let's start with Colby on this one.
So yeah, they are really important, right? Because it's almost like this lull. Like both of those stories, it's almost like every story has like that low point before you head back up for the climax, right? Like things build, and then like you hit that low point where it's like, oh, nothing can ever be right again. And then it's like, bam, and then the hero has to face, they have to slay their dragons or whatever. This felt like kind of like that build up, right? Where things are kind of going well for Corey. Maybe things are looking up for him. He's starting to get out a little bit more. Like you said, there's trauma in the town in Haddonfield because of what has happened so many times. And in recent memory for folks because of what, like we were talking about, where Michael essentially murders a farmer's market worth of people in the town. Some of them have been around for a while. We have some folks that, some callbacks to lots of previous films. It feels like, oh, okay, things are getting better. And then just like this sudden, it's almost like, when if you've ever worked in film and, you have to set the timer, and that clap is the thing that, helps you mark and sync up the audio. It's almost like that, where it's just like, or like a record scratching, where it's just like, no, just kidding. Actually, we're going right back down. We're going back to that low point. And then everything that happens afterward, right? In all of those moments, because there are some nice moments in terms of relationships, in terms of things, kind of working out. And so I agree with you. They weren't throwaway moments. Like, they were really, really critical to kind of like hammer home the point that this is how the town sees them, and that they are maybe not what they perceive themselves to be, even as they try and open themselves back up to living in Haddonfield.
Let's talk about perception for a second. Justin, I want to get your opinion on this. The old trope is, if you're going to have a bully, that bully's going to be big and he's going to be bad. And he's going to play football and he'll kick your ass. He's not going to be a sousaphone player. He's not going to be on the drum line. One of those kids probably plays the flute. I don't know. He probably plays the flute. One of them may play a skin flute. I don't know. That's.
I mean, if he's a teenage boy, it's a good bet.
I don't play it, but I know all the notes. So, Justin, what do you think about this bully scene? Like, is it like maybe am I putting this too far under the microscope, or should they really not have gone with the band kids? And I'm a parent of band kids, okay?
Yeah.
But they're not going to bully anybody. Tell me you know where I'm going with this. What do you think?
I think it kind of ties in with the with even like the last thing where we're talking about, like the Corey's party, the supermarket scene. That what my thoughts on that whole thing are is the entire town is fractured. Look at what happened with the guy who escaped with Michael in Halloween Kills, and it's the evil dies tonight, kind of whole thing where eventually a guy jumps, jumps out of the building. So the whole town itself is kind of fractured, and it goes from, and I think that opening montage where it shows people like, hanging themselves, or every murder is attributed to this, and the way that they treat Laura, the way they treat and alienate Corey, I think that it goes down to, like, as much as I don't really have a lot of believability that this vicious killer, the next Michael Myers, Corey Cunningham, is going to just get his ass whipped a couple times by the high school band. I think it just shows it's like this town has a problem. There's a sense of, it's a weird off, like, aggressive defensive mechanism where they because that's how it starts, is they're just like, oh, it was like, we know who you are, you're this, and then Lori pulls up and it's like, oh, it's the psycho and the freak show, This whole town has really kind of got an issue, even though I don't feel like maybe the band would have been the best group to go with, but it kind of just showed across the board that, like, everyone in this town is kind of not coping with trauma well.
Yeah, maybe probably trickling down, right?
Yeah, like maybe the band is the exact mechanism to use, because like you said, Billy, like, these guys, like the band, like, yeah, it's so bad in this town. The band is going out here doing this stuff, right? Like, the banders are getting these guys. Like, yeah, man, like, Haddonfield is messed up.
You don't go there, and if you do go, don't go anywhere near the band room. You'd rather go to the bar. Just go to the hitching post.
The color guard kids didn't get him.
God. Okay, well, you know what? Point taken. I mean, that's a really good point. But, Corey doesn't have the best home life either. I mean, if he can't take it from the band kids, he's sure not taking it at home. His mom is toxic, and we don't know if she became that way before or after the incident with the kid. But what was the very first point of the film where you sensed, and I'm going to start off with Brittany, where you sensed that Corey was now on the wrong path?
So it was actually early on in the film where you could kind of see the wheels in his head turning, because you had gathered that this wasn't the first time. And band kids, bullying comes from everywhere. People project, and I'm sure this was probably a lot worse at one point, and you can kind of see that breaking point hit a little harder. So it was really probably that the first scene where he meets Lori, where his hands cut. You can see that kind of rage. You're tired of being blamed for something was not your fault. And you want so bad to exact some type of vengeance, in your mind vengeance, but you're not quite there yet, but you could just see those little cracks start in the reasoning, and you could tell he was kind of being pushed more to that point.
What say you, Justin? When was the first time you saw Corey really, I guess, turning to the next gear?
Honestly, I think it was probably you do have like the anger with the chocolate milk bottle and everything, but at the same time, they were calling him a pedophile and everything else.
Yeah.
So, like, you understand why he's angry. I think some of it, honestly, that I've not really thought about too much until earlier today was he, once Allison starts getting really invested in him, and it's like the one thing in his life that not that he can necessarily control, but he does have some like destiny
influence, maybe,
on where it goes and where it ends. That mixed with, say, it's somebody who is now embracing him, faith, but this person also has a pessimistic view on the town itself. They're wanting out. So it's like, it almost is like kind of like lighting a fuse to where it's like, well, this is a great person who was dealt a bad hand, and they're saying it's okay to screw this town, or that people here are awful. And I think that almost like, to somebody who's fractured like Corey, this is almost like it's all right sort of thing. And it's also like he starts to get some kind of control back over with his life. And whenever you mix the two, it became a real toxic thing.
There are two people in this film who, well, actually three, if you count Lori, but there are two people in this film who care about Corey, and actually love Corey. One is the stepfather, and two being Allison. The stepfather is a good influence on him, but as we see, stepfathers who maybe have not been around like the entire life of the child may not have that strong influence on the child. Allison comes along, and she has this influence on him, and she's ready to burn the town to the ground. So yeah, I could see that being maybe the way that he goes, because he's already going to have an inclination to go towards, the bad and maybe destructive, even though it's constructive for them, not hypothetically, it's metaphorically destructive for the town if they're going to quote unquote burn it to the ground. He's down with that. So it's hard to put a finger on where the first, I guess, evil intentions come from. But it's definitely before they meet the homeless man outside of the drain, yeah. Right? It's definitely before that. And this isn't Corey's first meeting with Michael. When Corey finds Michael just living in the sewers, Michael's got Corey by the throat. We see the reflection of the mask in Corey's eye. Okay, and this is another, I don't want to say point of contention, but it is up to your interpretation. We see the shape, if you will, in Corey's eye. This could be a reflection of Michael looking into, because he's right there, right? But it could also be a manifestation of that evil that Michael, really lords over the town of Haddonfield. But what is Michael's reasoning for letting Corey walk away? And do you feel like this, like it was an encounter that may have been like Michael thinking, hey, I've got a sidekick here, or I've got a puppet? Colby, I want to start with you.
Yeah, so I feel like it's more the second, right? Because he sees, like, the eye thing is really, really key in that scene, because he has him there. They're staring at each other. I mean, Corey's presumably, it feels like, oh, he's toast, right? Like, Michael Myers has got you, man, that's it. Like, you're like, that's hanging out with a rattlesnake, you know what I mean? Like, eventually you're gonna get bit. But like you said, the shape is a key thing throughout the series, throughout the franchise, the shape, right? And when you see it in his eye, it's almost like I feel like in a way there's like a transfer there, or there's a recognition there, where Michael sees something in Corey that he knows is in himself. So that's why he lets him go, because Michael's in a bit of a bind where he is. You're right. He's kind of stuck where he is, and he needs to get out. And so I think it's more the puppet, like you said, Billy, where it's like, it doesn't seem as a sidekick. Like Michael Myers doesn't necessarily want a sidekick. He wants a means to an end. And it's weird because we don't really think of Michael Myers as like this calculating killer, right? That's not his way. Michael Myers is stealthy and slick, but strong, right? Like, he's not the guy who's got some grand scheme that's going to get you. That's not his way. But you also see that, he sees something in Corey, lets him go. Eventually Corey comes back, right? And he starts to feed him. And eventually things go down, right? And so it's just, I feel like that's more of what Michael sees, and that's why he allows the things that happen to happen as a means to an end more than anything.
Well, there was always evil, I guess, embedded in Corey. But do you think that was awakened, Brittany, by the killing of the homeless guy outside of the drain? Do you think that's what put the wheels in motion?
I think the wheels had been in motion long before that. I think that was a catalyst, a good, jumping off point. Well, I've thought about this. I have all this rage built up. I know why I feel the way I feel. I can do, I can make this more than what just in here. I can actually act out this. And, once you've done that, and you kind of you're like, oh, this isn't so bad. This isn't so hard. I think it makes it easier. So I think the wheels had been in motion long before that, but very, very big jumping off catalyst.
Justin, you think that maybe he's like telling himself, like, I thought I might have it in me, but I was too timid. Now that I've taken this homeless guy out, killing's going to get a little bit easier. I think it was Solid Snake in the first Metal Gear Solid that says killing is just something that happens the more as you go. It just gets easier as you go.
I mean, maybe I think that was possibly a release for him. I think the Michael looking in his eye and we see the shape, I think that almost is like the closest thing to like harkening back to the mirror or the window, because they explained it was like, oh, he wasn't looking out, he was looking at himself. And so here you are, you have another instance of a reflection, but he's seeing it in Corey's eye. But also at that same time, if you notice, Corey is probably the first victim in the entire series that he almost gives up. And while they're staring at him, Michael's choking him. Like, Corey's like putting up a fight for a second, but then quits. And it's almost like he just wants to die. And that that kind of kills the thrill of the chase, but also it's probably like really off-putting. It's like, hey, there's something to this kid, to Michael, because Corey almost just kind of like quits. He quits by, he lets go of his hand and just stares at him, and that's whenever like the reflection kind of thing happens, and then he steps out. You have the homeless guy, but I feel like honestly, that was Corey's like moment where it's of release, and with the homeless guy, you've got like, okay, this is that now, and now it's like, this guy bothered me, and I can do something about it. Like, it's like I can defend myself. I can be this.
If there's nothing else that I take from that, it's going to be the hearkening back to the reflection in the window. Like for the first time, it's probably the first time he's seen his own reflection.
Yeah.
And yeah, just looking back, seeing that reflection from Corey back onto himself probably woke something up. And there's probably a conversation to be had. Say that again.
He's also somebody that Corey wasn't scared of Michael.
Right. For a moment, he seemed startled, and then, like you said, he just kind of
startled. And once he realized what was happening, he just quits and then keeps going back looking for him.
Yeah.
At one point, he wrestles him.
Right.
Yeah, which is wild, right? Like I said, he's just like doing a thing. Because I agree with you guys. Like that moment is when the levee breaks, and then, like you said, the killing of the homeless man. It's like, like you said, Billy. It's like once you do it once, and in this case, it's kind of an accident, but also in self-defense. And so then he's like, now technically, it's happened twice, right? Once as a true accident, once in self-defense, and he's in a state of mind where he can say, you know what, this isn't that hard. And I can act out like, Brittany and Justin have talked about here. And so I'm going to.
He's ramping up. I mean, just make it a little bit easier as you go. Baby steps. It doesn't get any, when it comes to killing, I guess there's no easier way to make it, to call it baby steps than accident to self-defense to cold-blooded murder.
It's like Fight Club, right? After you go for a couple weeks, you're carved out of wood.
Pretty much. And, if you really want to talk about homicide, the next, the third step would be taking a guy who was already a dirtbag and having somebody leading him to his death, not being the hands that took him out, but leading him to the death. So there's 3 steps before he actually, performs his own first kill of the doctor. And, that one's a pivotal scene as well. If you really think about it, that he probably learns there, and this is at the doctor's home with the assistant. He basically tries to be Michael and do it all on his own. He gets the doctor, stabs him a lot of times, and that's great. Good for you, Corey. But the girl gets away. She closes the door on him. He realizes, like, if he were by himself doing this, then he's lost. He's not yet Michael, and he wants to be. And I mean, I guess it's a good thing that Michael's there to give him the and one. But this is, these are like just progressive steps for Corey to become what he wants to be ultimately. Now, noticing the change in Corey, it happens in different ways for different people. He all out basically admits to killing someone, to Allison, and she doesn't bat an eye. I mean, she extends her hands. Brittany, what do you make of Allison's response, knowing that Michael has basically destroyed her family? You would think that maybe someone would, feel a little bit differently when someone admits, the person that they're with admits that they have basically straight up killed a man. Now, I don't know. I might have taken it as like, hey, I killed someone, and he's being, or maybe feeling guilty about the accidental death of the kid. But I don't think that's what the story's telling us. I think he's admitting to killing the homeless guy.
Yeah.
So give me your thoughts on that.
So I had a lot of issue with Allison's development throughout this entire movie, and that was part of it. when it's like, kind of a, oh well type, thing. You killed somebody, it's okay. It really kind of, to me, showed she had really put the blinders onto it. It didn't matter what he did at that point. It didn't matter what he said. It didn't matter what anybody said, because everybody was just a bully to him. Poor Corey, and you start to, it really got really toxic really fast. And you start to make excuses for people, and you forget that at a certain point. And I feel like this really pushed it home for me, at least, that you start allowing people to blame their own actions on other people, and that's okay. And it was very it was not my favorite moment of hers throughout this film.
Mine either. I wasn't a fan of that. Now, before we go too much further, I've actually kept Justin past his the welcome time. Justin, we're gonna have you back on, my man, and
I would love to.
Man, it's been too long. We don't talk enough. We're gonna make this happen. So you enjoy the rest of your night, and I'm gonna handle Colby and Brittany over here for the rest of the time.
I'm gonna go look at Colby's guitar and his profile picture on his Twitter.
Do it. You're gonna love it.
This machine kills fascists.
That's
what is it?
Love it. Justin, thank you very much for joining. We're gonna see you on one very soon. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks a bunch, guys.
Thank you for coming. Later.
See ya.
So, very good point, Brittany. I was not happy with Allison's character in this. It just struck me as very odd the way that she behaved. But then again, you have to kind of expect and embrace some, oddness because Lori's being the same way. She's accepting things 4 years after she just waited 40 years to kill a man. So people get over, and people kind of accept things a little differently once they've put it in their head that they're going to accept them, right?
True. Right.
So, did Michael Myers let you live, or did you escape? Like, this is something that Corey asked of Allison. And when she said that my mom saved me, it basically says her mom saved her. I feel like this is a time when Corey realizes that he's gone too far and there's no help coming, because his mother is not going to save him. His mother has been a big part of his problems, and I almost feel like this might be, this is partly an homage to the movie Christine, but it's also an homage to maybe Stephen King in general. I may have even missed a few things, but I feel like the son and mother issues might be maybe an homage to Carrie. Just a mother who is just bananas crazy and wants the best for Corey, but can't seem to give him the best because she does more damage than helping. So what say you? Do you think that this is the point of no return for Corey once he figures out from Allison that, her mother helped her escape and that there's no help coming for him? I guess, Colby, we'll start with you.
Yeah, because I feel like in that moment, he realizes that they're not the same. I think that's why he asks the question, right? Because he wants to see, like, are you like me? And did Michael Myers let you live too? Are we in the same club? And when the answer is no, my mom basically sacrificed herself so that I could live, that's not the same thing at all, is it? And so I think you're right that in that moment, he realizes that there is no help. He's going down a path where he is going to have to walk it alone. And, it's like, well, if I'm going to go all in, I'm going to go all in, right? Because then they really start to go along, and he starts to go on his rampage. And some of it's, I think, some of the kills are like, yeah, all right, yeah, that guy deserved it, because like what is Allison doing dating certain guys in the film? It's like, that guy That guy's like 45. What are you doing?
She's got terrible taste. I mean, first of all, there's the kid from 18 and Kills, right? I mean, he's taking her phone away from her, throwing it in a punch bowl or whatever the hell it was. He's a very shady character. She goes on to the next bad boy, who happens to be one of the Mulaney boys. I can't remember his first name, but he's one of the Mulaney's, and he's a cop now. So, our relationship with, the police in the movies is probably mirroring a lot of social issues. So there's not going to be a lot of trust there either. Now, you move on to number 3, and usually 3 strikes and you're out. And she's moved on to damaged guy number 3 now. So yeah, there's a lot of questionable stuff.
Like in his like early 50s. Like, sweetie,
was
you're
he though?
20 years old, man. Like, what are you doing? I think
he was younger, but he had that old man haircut. He had a haircut just like Sheriff Brackett had in the original. It was like literally identical to that same hairstyle.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah,
and it's supposed to be modern day.
Though, huh? Yeah.
No.
But the day after Corey and Allison were told to leave that radio station, the DJ basically runs them off, right? Well, Lori really confronts.
Cool, by the way.
Oh yeah. Well, Lori confronts Corey sleeping in the home. I think it was the home of the kid he killed, right? Or the kid that died on his watch.
Yeah,
that's the same home, right? Yeah. So once Lori establishes on the very spot, yes, right there at in the foyer. I'm fancy, so I say foyer. But once Lori establishes that she's not going to let Corey hurt Allison, like he basically went, full court press. Like he's now like up in the guns. He's smiling in her face. He's bringing up Michael, something he never had the balls to do earlier. Once it's only them, the guns kind of get brandished. And at one point he goes to sit on the stairs, thus taking his eyes off of Lori. Well, sometime during his little monologue, she disappears. And I can't help but think that maybe she felt that, hey, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to tell him what's up because I've dealt with worse. But the moment I can get out, I'm going to get out because he will probably try to kill me. Do you think that she's at the point where she believes he's far past gone? Brittany, let's start with you.
Oh yeah, I think she's fully aware that he is out the door. There's no that he's reached that point of no return. It's not going to happen, and she can see it's like you can see a vision of that future, and you don't want. That's a maternal instinct to protect, especially your only granddaughter. And I think she knows exactly what he is at that point. Exactly. Yeah. Maybe not exactly what he's done, but she's seen it enough through her own experiences to be able to recognize it in him.
Well, not only that, outside the radio station, she sees him, like she's spying on Allison and Corey, and she sees Corey jump off the side of the canopy there. And what's he do? He does that famous sit up, right? Like the Undertaker sitting up. And like, this is something that like, yeah, I've seen little things.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen little things out of Corey. Now I saw one really big thing, and it's things that I'm far too familiar with. What say you, Colby?
Yeah, you're right, because she has a lot of experience, and there starts to be far too many parallels with Michael, right? She has decades of experience with Michael, and back to the first film, like what does Michael do? Michael comes home, right? Or he at least returns to the scene of his first crime. That's what Corey's doing. He's a broken man now returning to the scene of his first crime, quote unquote, because we all agree that it was an accident, but still it's maybe the way he starts to see it. And so she's like, yeah, I've seen this movie too much. Like I need to confront him. But your point is a good one where like, she's not going to stand there and like fight him. No, she's not gonna do that. Like she needs to get out. And maybe it's a little bit of that Myers trickery. Cause Michael has a way of disappearing himself. So
oh, he sure does. Yeah. Pulling the same games on Corey that Michael's pulled on her so many times.
Yeah.
But after years of Dr. Loomis and Lori exclaiming that Michael's not a man, like he's something more, he's evil. Was that the boogeyman? Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think it was. They pretty much settled on Michael as an entity. It may have been metaphorical, but why did this film totally switch gears in multiple scenes, mind you, and declare that Michael is just a man? I mean, was it a revelation? They did this a couple of times. There was when Lori was disposing of the body, and there's when Corey was taking the mask off. You're just a man. Give me the mask. You're just a man, right? So was this a revelation that they had over time? Or was this just kind of lazy writing and a simple way to, walk into a definitive finale? Either one of you. I'm too mad.
I'm going to. I can't justify that. You spent two movies just in the last several years building up this otherworldly boogeyman, pure evil, devil's eyes type of thing. And I think it was a way just to hone in the fact that this is going to be the final. This is where it's going to come to a conclusion. We have to, he is just a man. I don't want to say lazy writing, because I think they tried to do it well, but it was I more poor planning over anything else. Just because it is, we know as collectively as fans, you know that everybody knows that he is the epitome of evil, and that is what you went in expecting, and it was just a flip. And I do think it was because just to tie up loose ends, to make
kind of one of those things where, like, yeah, it's not lazy writing, but we only got contracts for 3 movies, so we're gonna have to do this.
Exactly. We gotta wrap this up quickly, tie it up with a nice little bow.
Colby, what say you on that? Man or essence of evil?
Well, you're right, because like they've built this up, right? That man, he's more than a man. He is this entity, the way you said, Billy.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't just kill an entity off in a single film, can you? So they got to bring it back down.
Mm-hmm.
And so they attempt to do that by saying, oh, he's just a man. And they do that in subtle ways, right? Like the scene that we talked about in the sewer where Corey sees Michael for the first time, and there's the eye to eye, and you sort of gaze into the eyes of Michael inside the mask. That's the first time that I think you really start to see them get at that. But then later, like you said, when Corey steals the mask and he's running around wearing it, and Michael now isn't. And, he's an old guy, to put it plainly. Like, he's an old guy walking around. And so they're sort of trying to like bring it back down for the final scene where there is a wrapping up of all of this. Because yes, maybe it's a little too grand to think that all of these films, all of these decades, all of this, and then this is the way that Michael Myers, how it gets wrapped up.
Yeah,
but they had to do it because, like you said, we've got contracts for 3 movies, and it's called Halloween Ends. So we've got to do something, and we can't just kill Superman when he's at the height of his power. We got to bring him down and make him immortal again so that we can wrap things up.
Yeah.
See, I have slightly a different view on this because, and I guess it's good that we have different views because otherwise a roundtable discussion does no good. But I've always taken those he's not a man type statements to be metaphorical. And when it comes time to figure out, like, well, why isn't he dying? Why did he not die in the streets when Tommy and company were beating him with everything from handguns to knives to baseball bats to irons? That he gets up and he does this thing. Well, I learned a long time ago, and it was such a simple statement from, I believe it was my stepdad that told me. I said, why does it not hurt him? He's like, well, because he's nuts. He has no, like, his pain threshold is just through the roof. And if you don't get a vital organ, then he's not going to die. And I thought about that after every time Michael's, seemingly died. Take part 4, for example. They lit him up with guns. They basically had him on the firing range. And, he falls down the sewer. And I know this is not the same timeline, but this is just, me thinking logically. I mean, what if it doesn't hit any vital organs? What if he doesn't bleed out? What if there is somebody to take care of him? Because this is something that I thought about at the beginning of part 5. Okay. He was nursed back to health by an old man, an old homeless man, a vagrant that kept him alive for about a year's time. Okay. Basically, Michael lay in a cot, being fed by this old man with his parrot near the riverside or near the stream side. And I can't help but think that maybe this homeless man that Corey ended up killing could be maybe, I don't want to call it an Easter egg. I don't want to call it an homage or anything like that, but maybe that's meant to have the same type of explanation. When Michael came limping into, the sewers after getting nearly beaten to death in Halloween Kills, he gets one more kill off, and then he's nursed back to health maybe by this vagrant. I can't say for sure. They never even hint at that might be, the explanation. But I do think there's some logic to that, and there's probably an argument, both ways. Whether or not you take it metaphorical or literal, I think is the beauty of this whole thing, because you can now leave it to your own interpretation, and Halloween Ends means what it means to you. And I think there's no better way to write a story, if I'm being honest about it. So, is Halloween Ends a little too Christine, or just an acceptable amount of Christine? Brittany, you're the book lady. Talk to me.
I've actually never read Christine. I've never.
Oh my God!
Never been able to make it through a Stephen King book all the way. I know.
Really?
I'm so ashamed of myself.
I pretended to read one time.
Salem's Lot, worth your time.
I will never pretend. I'm not that way. I can't pretend. I've tried really hard. Hard copy, audio, just I can never make it through all the way.
Well, I was in first grade though. I was in first grade. I pretended to read Cujo.
You were in first.
Yeah, because this may be something that was a little bit before your time, but we had a little something called the Book It program. Okay. And the Book It program meant that you read like X number of books and your class gets a pizza party. Okay. So I just walked around the house and I wrote down the titles of all these books, the authors' names, had my mama sign it for me. I said, hey, I read these, and my mom's not going to be reading Cujo. Cujo's like that thick. So, and I pretended to read it, and we got that pizza party, by God.
You should have done It. That would have been more impressive.
I didn't even know It was a thing. I just knew that Cujo was about a dog. Well, I actually thought, because I probably saw the movie Cujo and knew what it was about and could say, if anybody asked me what's it about, I could say, well, it's about that. And it's not that far from the truth.
No. It's not,
I mean, that's one of the least, what do you call it? Like, there's not a lot of difference between the book and the movie with Cujo.
Yeah.
The rest of his books, there's a shitload of difference.
There's tons of difference. There's more differences than you care to.
I think the kid dies in the book, but that's about it. And had anybody asked me that, I would have given away, what, that I didn't read this book.
There you go.
But tell me, just rapid fire, is Halloween Ends too Christine, or not enough Christine, or just an acceptable amount of Christine?
I think it's an acceptable amount of Christine, and I say that as I love Christine, the movie itself. I adore it. I adored it from childhood on. It's still one of my favorite movies. I think it had just enough. I think it it tied in really well. It was very subtle. I don't think it was too over the top. And it was a good segue. It had a good feel to it. It wasn't, blatant slapped in your face, but it wasn't, so subtle that people wouldn't catch on to it. So I think they did a pretty good job.
There's one scene, and that's the one in the junkyard. Colby, do you think that this film is too Christine or acceptable amount of Christine?
Yeah, I think it's not too much, right? Because they don't just completely parallel everything that happens in Christine. Because like I think a good example is when Eddie dies, right?
Mhm.
The car is distraught by that, right? Like it doesn't know what to do.
Mhm.
Michael doesn't care. Michael doesn't care, about
He
Corey.
fully had a hand in
He doesn't care
in
about
Eddie
him, right?
dying.
Like, yeah, it's totally fine, right? Like, but in Christine, the car is just a mess when that happens, right? And so I also was thinking about because there is an influence, right? Like the car starts to have this influence on Eddie, right? And that's how
Yes.
they build this relationship. And
It's the other way around here.
yeah, it's not quite that, right? Like it feels like Corey is seeking this thing from Michael, whereas like it's the reverse. Like as Eddie starts
And
to work
Michael's
on,
accepting it
yeah,
because I have a theory on that as well.
yeah,
So
but like
yeah, I think you're right.
the car is the one influencing Eddie in Christine, and then the end of Christine, if you've seen the film, the car gets smushed, and then there's just that little movement. You know what I mean? Just to kind of like leave the door open a little bit. You don't get that in Halloween Ends. That's not
No,
what
you don't.
happens.
There's nothing to even wiggle.
Nope. Like, and it's on purpose, right? Like they did that on purpose. So
Correct.
it's just enough Christine. There are elements of it, but it's not over the top because, like I said, there are key differences throughout. That's like, no, it's not like that.
So was Michael planning to kill Corey all along, or did he only do it because of the betrayal, Colby?
I think that he does because I think, like I said, when we talked earlier about does he see him as a sidekick or as a puppet? Myself personally, he sees him as a puppet. And so a means to an end, right? It's like I said, you hang out with a rattlesnake long enough, it'll bite you. And eventually Michael's going to bite Corey. It's just going to happen. So they may be hanging out. We talked about the fact that maybe Michael gains power from getting kills. I think that the film maybe hints at that, right? Because as things go on, that
Subtle. It's subtle,
seems to
but
be the
very
case.
visible.
Right. But at the end of the day, Michael's not like, all right, he betrayed me, I'm going to kill him. Like, he doesn't care. Like that's the thing about
He was
Michael.
going to die to begin with.
Yeah, like he was going to kill him eventually anyway, but he just sees something in him that is like, oh, I can work with this. And then eventually when it's run its course, the rattlesnake's going to bite.
Tell me your thoughts on Michael's actual end. Actually, before you do that, let me tell you, my theory here was that Michael was using Corey because he knew that Corey was going to kill in his name. He felt like he was going to get something out of this Corey relationship, and that's to get his power back. Like nothing like chummy, no sidekick stuff. But you know what? If I'm going to be drawn, or this kid's going to be drawn to me, I'm going to be able to kill, and I'm going to be able to get my strength back, and I'm going to be old Michael again. And I think that's what he wanted. He just wanted to subsist, and he didn't want to die, and he was slowly dying down in the doggone alarm. You hear that? I hate that. See, this was going perfectly, and I just screwed it all up. No, but so Michael doesn't want to die. He wants to live. He wants to live on to kill again, because that's really the only thing that keeps him going. And that first kill with Mulaney, you see like a trembling, and it's a very subtle trembling, but he's getting something out of it. And I don't think it's just like joy. I think it's some sort of strength. Now that is the part that I have a hard time coming to terms with, because I have fought this supernatural, this paranormal thing for so long. And I just told you a few minutes ago, the Michael's not a man stuff is metaphorical to me. Well, how do I reconcile that with, well, he's gaining strength by killing? Because there's no logical human explanation for that. But I said it anyway. So, hey, I'm basically talking out of both sides of my mouth, right? But again, that's the beauty of it all. You interpret it the way you want to interpret it, and there's no wrong answer. But now, give me your thoughts, and I'll start with Brittany, on Michael's end from the fight in the kitchen to the junkyard. Do you think this was a proper fitting end for Michael Myers?
I thought it was actually one of the few times as I was watching this movie, I was very it's like, this is what I've been waiting for, and it was the last little bit. I thought it was a very fitting end for his specific character. She gets to be the one to take him out. She is Lori, you know, has come this long way, and she has been able to finally defeat that demon that has haunted her for all these years, and with the help of her granddaughter, Allison, who also, even though she has not faced this foe for nearly as long as Lori has, that, you know, she did lose everything because of him. Together, I really enjoyed that strong female ending where you take him out together, and that coming together. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was, you know, a fitting send off. This is, you're never coming back, not even the chance of coming back. It's you're gone there, you know, that you can't tape together those shredded pieces. And the only part I did not totally enjoy about it was that there was no, yes, the town got to, you know, see it. There was this kind of send off, but there was no kind of resolve with the fact that, okay, this monster is gone. Now kind of, you know, heal yourself and show that to Lori, who you treated so horribly throughout this entire movie. You blamed her. So now y'all come together. It felt very, there wasn't that satisfying ending for me, but
it should have been more cathartic.
Yes, much more cathartic. So,
Colby, what say you? How did you like the end of Michael Myers in this timeline?
Yeah, I like what Brittany, how she pointed out that like Lori had to have the help of Allison there to kind of like seal the deal, right? That was an important thing. I guess I didn't think of in the moment, but it's like, yeah, she had to have her there. I get what you're saying though, where it's like, okay, the whole town does the thing. They go through the weird pseudo funeral, I guess. They close that chapter in their town's history. But you're right. Like, does that mean that also there's a forgiveness of Lori? We don't get that vibe, right? Like, there's not really that thing. Like, is she now accepted at the grocery store? Is that cool now? Or is she going to get harassed some more? The only thing that I think where they get close to hinting at that kind of thing is maybe the scene with the sheriff guy. I don't know his name. Where he shows up and they sort of pick up that conversation they had at the grocery store earlier, right? Where it's sort of like she's ready to have nice things again. Mm-hmm. You know?
She's twiddling with her hair and all that stuff at the they're ready, right? To go to Pound Town is what they're ready to do. All right, they're tired of messing around. They're like, you know what? We're about to have old people sex sometime after this movie's over, and there's nothing you guys can do about it.
That's fine.
Cherry blossoms.
Totally fine with it. Yeah,
in Japan.
When she said cherry blossoms, she meant anal, is what she meant. That's what that means. Okay, guys, quit messing around. Listen, with all the Easter eggs and the homages and this end with Michael, what would you like to see next out of the Halloween franchise? If anything. Brittany, we'll start with you.
That's really good. So I'm fine with them laying the mask to rest. I am under the opinion it really should have ended probably in 2018. I loved Halloween. That ending was amazing to me. It was everything I wanted it. And I'm fine. We have so much, and you can only take a character so far. I would like to see more of that anthology, bringing in new blood to, you want things to grow and you want things, and there's so many good storylines. There was good meat to that character, and there was good meat to that story. It just wasn't I didn't feel like it was fleshed out enough to where it, it really got its proper due. So I would be, totally down for, them to carry on with an anthology, uh, and just lay the mask to rest.
What say you, Colby?
Yeah, I think it's tough because if they were going to do that, they should have stuck to their guns after 3.
Yeah.
Right. Where it's like, we're going to do this and this is the way we're going to do it. But it feels like the studio chickened out because 3 got the reception that it did. They're like, oh crap, we're going to bring back Michael. And that's really, the mask, like Brittany just said, like that's what the franchise becomes. At this point, like, I don't know that they can do that. I don't know that they can be like, all right, we're going to go back to like 3. Or if they are, they're going to have to seriously like American Horror Story it and really stick to their guns on this, right? Like they can't go back because I agree. Like, I don't know where else they can go with the Michael Myers story aside from reboot. That's really it. It's the only other place it can go. And so I think that I don't think they can really do an anthology. And if they do, they have to figure out a way to do it in a way that's palatable because they're just too far into it now. They missed their boat when they decided to go back in 4 and bring back Michael Myers, the return of Michael Myers. So I don't know where it's going to go, man. Aside from reboot, I can't see a clear path unless somebody else wants to do their interpretation, because like you said, we've had the Rob Zombie interpretations. We've had, this more recent trilogy and its interpretation, which is a continuation of sorts, but also, some other director's vision for it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way they come in and it's midstream and they say, we're going to do it this way with new characters, but the mask continues.
Shout out to the guys on Slasher U, our affiliate show, our brother show with Christian Rao and Steve Feck, the Feckless Wonder. Guys, I mean, honestly, you think about it, and there are a few different timelines within the Halloween franchise. You've got the Cult of Thorn, you've got the Jamie Lloyd, from 4 and 5. I don't really consider the beginning of 6 her timeline, even though it technically is. But I would like to see that. I would like to see more of Jamie. I don't know if I want Danielle Harris. I wouldn't say no to it. She's definitely kept herself up. She still looks, she looks like an older version of the child that we watched on part 4 and 5, but I actually could see Halloween go to the anthology thing, or at least a remake of Season of the Witch.
Yeah.
I've always contended that Season of the Witch, nobody would ever have a problem with it if it wasn't called Halloween. And time has been very kind to Season of the Witch. You've got some casuals who still say, yeah, well, I watched it in theaters. I was disappointed. I hate it. But you've got like hardcore fans that are like, you know what? If you really watch this film and you get Michael Myers out of your head, Season of the Witch it's a pretty damn good movie. And I'm inclined to agree. It is a fantastic film that had it only been called Season of the Witch, it would be an all-time great. An all-time great. So that's, that's my final thought on it. So final thoughts, give this film, Halloween Ends, a grade out of 10 slashes. We'll call it out of 10 slashes. I'm giving it a solid 8 slashes. I loved it. I've got no problem with anything they did homage wise or Michael Myers not being so much in the film wise. I like the Corey arc. The only thing I can say as far as opportunities, I wish there had been more Michael versus Laurie at the beginning of the film to explain why the night after Laurie walked out of the hospital looking for Michael, did she not find him? We got that in sort of, the memoirs, but it just wasn't enough. I need visuals. I need this to be something that you spell out to me, because you didn't give us a lot of Michael in this film, and there is something to be said for those complaints. Brittany, what say you?
I think you were very kind with your slashes. I'm probably there were parts of this I did enjoy. I would have liked more had it been expanded on. I feel like it was very messy planning of a movie, but it had good bones. So I'm going to give it to me a five slashes.
5 out of 10.
5 out of 10. It's a
I'll be damned.
point.
Brittany's got standards, man.
I've got standards. It's,
Billy doesn't. Billy
I
doesn't have standards.
I want, I want a cohesive plot point where I can, and I like, at the beginning, what you said, I think if they had switched it, if they had maybe made the beginning that epic battle and then you pick up the mask after and maybe kind of continued on with a Corey story, and you could have, finished that off and maybe another movie. I think that would have, and the evil taking a new shape. I think I would have enjoyed that more, but as it was, I was disappointed.
5 out of 10. I'll be damned. Colby, you're the final guy here.
Yeah, so I'm a little more than 5, because I'm not like one of these hardcore Halloween folks that like it has to be such a way. Billy, I was gonna say I think you're right actually when you said that doing a redo of Season of the Witch might be just the way to turn it into an anthology, to say we're going to go back to that moment and then we're going to continue in that vein now.
Kickstart it.
Yeah, that might be the way. So smart move on your part. Good suggestion. But for me,
glad I thought of it.
But for me, I'm going to go 7 slashes because it feels like I like being entertained, and I was entertained throughout this film. Like you said, I like the Corey arc. I like the way that they sort of used him as a mechanism to kind of show, sort of a mirror to the way that not just Haddonfield is, but the way that society is, right? Yeah. And that's what good art does. And so I felt like they did a good job there. But there were misses, right? Like, and also I like this film because it doesn't take itself too seriously, right? When they go back to the radio station to take care of business, like there are some like funny moments. Like, I mean, there are like funny kills in this movie.
The tongue on the
tongue on the record player, right? Gosh. Like that's something.
I can't believe we didn't even talk about that.
We didn't, because I feel like we sort of let folks we didn't talk too much details here, so we left it open for some folks who maybe haven't seen it. But for me, like this film didn't take itself too seriously. There were moments where like there was some good stuff, but then also, like Brittany said, there were some times where it was like, what? This doesn't make sense. Like, what? How did this happen? Like, I know there's a gap, but like, why? How is this? So those kinds of holes in the plot of how we got there, they got to make a movie, and I get it, but you got to tie up some of those loose ends, especially in a film called Halloween Ends, where it's all about tying up loose ends one way or another, right? You have to do some of those things. And so that's where I think it missed. But overall, I was entertained, and I liked the characters that they introduced, and I liked the way things went. It's interesting. It got us talking about it for an hour and a half. So,
Colby, I don't think I could have encapsulated it any better than that. So that's where we're going to put a bow on this show. Guys, I really do appreciate your time tonight. Doing these roundtables is a time commitment, and you guys have been very gracious with your time. I appreciate you. I know the listeners are going to appreciate you, and I can't wait to have you guys on again. If you love these guests, as you very well should, check out the episode description in today's of today's guests in the bio. So we're going to have link trees and links to social media on all of our projects, and you're going to be able to find these guys anywhere you want to find them. So until next time, go forth, and may you drink the blood of your enemies from the skulls of their children.